chug, 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 chug,
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Wizard Staff. I'm your host, Guy.
And I'm Blake.
And we are two drunk novices who like to talk about EDH. We drink and swear, so you've been warned. Please drink responsibly before playing children's card games. It has been a very long time since we have recorded. I think it was back in Tarkir Dragonstorm. We did a set review because dragons are fucking awesome. But, you know, Blake and I don't do this as a living, and so big life events get in the way. We've both had some things come up, and it's certainly had to kind of get us to put this on a pause for a short bit. But we're back, and today we are going to be covering all the things that have been going on since the last time that we recorded. So we have a lot that we're going to talk about.
You moved, and then we're recording this before I move. We both had career changes. Yeah, we've just been super busy, and we've just not been very passionate about the Universes Beyond sets that have kind of been happening the last couple months, so we're just going to focus on our personal lives, but we're back, and we're going to kind of do a run-through of, half of the year, and just kind of talk about what's been happening, and how we feel about the state of Magic, and just kind of shoot the shit.
Yeah, and you know, I think one of the other really important things that did happen within that time is we did see each other, physically.
Yes, we did.
We were in person. I went to Washington for a few days for another friend's wedding, and we got to hang out, play some Magic. So, you know, it's not like Blake and I just stopped talking to each other and we're you know, 6 months later, hey, shit, we got a podcast that we kind of do. Maybe we should do that, you know? So
yeah. I do remember us briefly saying, hey, do we want to try to record when we're together? And it's no, we got other things we have to do. Actually playing the game instead of just talking about it.
Yeah. But good times. So,
it was.
Okay, we are going to be talking so many things, but of course, before we get into all of that, what are we drinking? Blake, what are you drinking?
All right, so I'm just keeping it simple. Wasn't expecting it, but went out last night pretty late, going to a number of places, and so I was drinking all last night. So now I'm drinking this afternoon, but I'm drinking Excelsior Imperial's Apple. It's 8.4 alcohol by volume, so it's kind of a high percentage for a cider, and I like it. I like the Excelsior as a brand, and it's yummy and tasty. It's by Schilling.
Is this a Washington brand, or?
Yeah, it's made in the Pacific Northwest, Auburn, Washington, not too far away. How about you, Guy? What are you drinking?
I also was trying to do something very similar where I just moved back to Ohio, and I was like, hey, for this episode, I kind of want to drink something that is Ohio made. And so I showed up to my local grocery store, and I can't find anything that is immediately available to me. It's also 7:30 in the morning. I'm the only person, in the alcohol section, because, not many people do that so early in the morning. So I just was next time I will try to prepare myself better. Maybe I'll do a little more research, but let me just grab what stands out to me as what's tasty. So I grabbed something new. I didn't grab anything that I'm familiar with, but it is Stella Rose Pineapple Sparkling Wine. It's definitely more on the sweet side, which isn't something I'm terribly fond with, especially for wines. I try to stick to something that's a little more dry, or just very, very mildly sweet. So this definitely is something a little out of my comfort zone, but it's tastes like pineapple. It kind of really tastes like a pineapple seltzer, just with like a hint of alcohol. Like, it's not overbearing. It's pretty good. I do like it.
So it's very sweet and a little bubbly.
Yeah, I mean, I've had sweeter wines for sure. So on the scale, it's probably more towards like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 on the sweetness.
Okay.
But like, I would normally want to stick to something no more that's like than like a 3.
Mm-hmm. So would you say like you regret the purchase, or you're like, oh, this is a pretty good one?
I definitely don't regret the purchase. I like pineapple. I don't think I would buy this often for myself, but I do think, a sweet little treat.
We all gotta do that sometimes. All right.
Yeah. Why don't you go, to the listener, why don't you go pick up pause the podcast right now, go pick up a sweet little treat, and then come back. Or actually, better yet, go right now and listen to this podcast as you're on your way to get a sweet little treat. That's what you should do.
Yeah, I like that. I listen to lots of podcasts when, like, driving.
Yeah? Okay, so, lot of stuff has happened. And I mean, that's not unnormal for Magic, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
Things happen, and they can happen pretty quickly. But we got a lot of things to talk about, and the first big thing that we're going to be talking about today is the Commander format changes that were made by WotC back in late April. This was, I think, shortly after the release of Dragonstorm Tarkir, or Tarkir Dragonstorm, and this is definitely not one of the normal Commander format changes that we're so used to, where like nothing happened. This one was pretty big.
Yeah.
We got 5 cards unbanned, and then we got a pretty big change to the Commander brackets, which, so we'll kind of talk about that in a sec, but let's first go over what are the 5 cards that are unbanned. They are Gifts Ungiven, Panoptic Mirror, Sway of the Stars, Raids, Cabal Minion, Coalition Victory. Blake, first thoughts when you see this list of cards unbanned?
Overall, I think it's been positive. Like these unbans happened in April of 2025, and we're now recording 7 months later, and the world is not on fire. Surprise, surprise. Well, it is, but in other ways.
This was not the reason the world started to go onto fire.
Yeah. These changes have more or less been fine as far as I can tell. I have seen very little continued long-term discussions about how these 5 unbans have been an issue. I think a lot of the player base was expecting the Coalition Victory unban. That one was one that was really talked about for years, and I was maybe actually kind of starting to change my opinion just because there was a number of cards within the last few years that Ghost has printed that obviously generates something that's all colors. I think there was a card from Duskborn, one of those Overlord, Hauntwood of the Overlord or something, land or something that's all colors.
Yep.
So I was actually maybe starting to change my opinion on Coalition Victory. If Wizards of the Coast is going to continue to make these cards that make Coalition Victory a super easy win con, but even then, it still is hard to cast card and has a lot of restrictions, and all these auto win exist besides Coalition Victory are fine and not an issue at all, and Coalition Victory is fine. And then there's also Panoptic Mirror, which a lot of people have talked about, liked, again, like each of these cards was given an explanation as to why they were unbanned. And I think that's one of the things that I've liked in the overall change of the rules committee. Like, no longer being the stewards of the format is, I feel like the explanations are a lot better and thorough and level-headed. That's just my personal opinion, though. So, like, each of these cards has been given a explanation. Gifts Ungiven has been unbanned, and I think it's sees a lot of play in CEDH, competitive EDH, a lot more now. So people like started putting in that card as kind of like a staple, and then they also put in Opposition Agent, the one that stops searches, because it's like, oh, well, now you're gonna like steal 2 searches. Like, that's so good. You know, there's so many like tutors. Gifts Ungiven is just like another really strong tutor. Sway of the Stars is also kind of just like a reset card, like reset the game card. But we already kind of have stuff like Worldfire, and over the like time that Worldfire has been unbanned, like those high mana value restart the game cards, like maybe they're not the most fun. Maybe you do it once and then you're like, all right, I'm satisfied, I'm never going to do it again. They tend not to be cards people play for a long time. Like I said, people play it once and they're like, all right, I did the thing, I'm never going to do that again, and take the card out of the deck. And then there's like Braid's Cabal Minion, and sure, it's kind of a stacksy card, but it's manageable. There are answers to it. Surprisingly, I haven't seen a whole lot of people complain about Braid's Cabal Minion. So I think these changes have been fine, if not positive. I'm all for a shorter ban list, especially now that the player base has to not only keep track of a ban list for Commander format, but the player base also has to keep track of like the bracket system, which has helped, but more specifically, the player base also has to keep track of game changers, which is this ever-changing, like, huge list. And so I'm all for having these lists be like manageable sizes, so the player base, there's not this huge barrier to entry. There's already so many barriers to entry with the Commander format. Like, I'm all for making it a little bit simpler.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into what you're like alluding to is like this Commander brackets. So I'm pretty sure this was something that was already made back in February or late last year, but in April, alongside this announcement, they had kind of an update where they expanded what the game changer list is, and also kind of expanded on what the bracket system means. So to give like a very short summary, the bracket system is a 5-tiered system that kind of shows you, the intended power level that you want to play. So the first one is meant as super basic, like almost joke type decks, super beer and pretzels, like fun, casual Commander. Bracket 2, I believe, is more of where we kind of see the current precons, like they're stronger, they, have a game plan, but, this will go into like turns 8 or 9, where, that's where you can kind of expect someone to maybe win. Bracket 3 is now, okay, we have these cards that we are limiting, which are the game changers. So in bracket 3, you can have 3 game changers. In any of the brackets before, you could have no game changers. So it's almost like a point system, very similar to what Canadian Highlander does.
Mm-hmm.
And then bracket 4 is kind of charged. Bracket 3, you can have any number of game changers, and then bracket 5 is basically CDH. So during this announcement, they added more cards to the game changers list. I don't want to read all of these because There's a lot. But,
Well, how many did they add?
well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. They added 22 cards to already like a 40 card list. So there's about 60 game changers. So like you mentioned, Blake, you now have to keep track of like what is a game changer and what is banned. You also kind of have to like know if you are playing in a certain bracket that you can't have some of these cards. So it's quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it's made things simpler, but also more to keep track of, I guess.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, I think that they've been these game changer changes and the bracket system changes have overall been a net positive. You know, these were like the announcements for all this information. They were betas, and so they took a lot of player feedback in those early developing months, and I think they've made a lot of positive changes. And you know, since that announcement, like back in April, it's been like a couple months, and it's felt like pretty calm and pretty stable.
Have you gone to any events or like game stores and played with people and had like the bracket discussion beforehand?
Yeah, and I find that
playing?
to be a little bit like, I find it to be helpful. Yeah, like around April, it's been a while since I've been in the game store, and so it takes a while for that information to spread out through the player base and at local game stores. So I was still at that time like, some people are like, oh, what's that? I've never heard of that. And I think that phenomenon will always persist to a certain degree. But I think the language and bracket system is like a really helpful tool instead of just a rule zero pre-game discussion. I feel like the bracket system helps that pre-game discussion more. So it's a bit more structured and it gives a bit more like clearer language to suss each other out and make sure that you're gonna like play on the similar levels and make sure there's not like power level mismatching. Yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, and like the nice thing too is like, even if you're playing in one bracket, you know, as long as not everyone, I guess, is like playing at like bracket 5, but like, you know, if there can be a balance of like, hey, my deck is a bracket 3, my deck is about bracket 3, my deck is a bracket 4, my deck is a bracket 3. Like, that should still kind of be able to, you know, hang and not, you know, create like such a huge discrepancy in like the power, because like the 3 bracket 3 decks can help keep the bracket 4 deck in check. Like, that's kind of what's nice about the system too. It's like, so long as, you know, we all understand what we're playing, nobody's gonna get too out of hand, hopefully.
Yeah. So it's been positive, I feel, and it's made me change some cards in my decks, but overall, like, it's not like, oh, I've had to completely rework and like re-identify my decks. I think it's like, oh, I've changed 1 or 2 cards in some of my decks, and they feel more thematic and they feel more like focused, so that when I sit down with them, I can say like, oh, this is in bracket 2 because of X, Y, and Z. This deck is in bracket 3 because X, Y, and Z. And I find it like, I say this, like, little speech for like each deck of like why it is the bracket that it is, and have fewer issues with power level mismatching because I'm able to give like a clear description of each of my decks.
Yeah, I think kind of same. I had some decks that, you know, by paper would be bracket 4, but I didn't think that they could consistently perform at that bracket 4 power level. So, I said to myself, like, I'm just going to take out some of the, game changer cards so that it can be a bracket 3 deck and kind of like hang there. And I feel like that has helped, allow me to run cards that, aren't the most powerful, but are still fun to play, for me at least. So I do like kind of the restrictions that the brackets have like placed. And it's also made me be like, okay, well, now I have a bracket 4 deck and 2 bracket 3 decks that I consistently play. Those are like my 3 main decks. But what if I want a bracket 2 deck? So I've kind of had the idea of like, okay, what does a bracket 2 deck look like for me? And like, what do I want to build? So that is also something that's like personally been on my mind.
Mm-hmm. And shifting gears a little bit, have you thought about like what changes you might want to see in the future? For example, I'm like pretty content with the number of brackets being like 5. I know some people have talked about like wanting 4 or 6. I'm fine with 5. Like, I expect like maybe the game changers is probably what's going to change the most in the next few months. Like, maybe they'll add some and take away some. I don't have specific cards to name, but I kind of expect that to be what happens in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's something maybe we could do in the future, is like, nitpick this a little more and say like, oh, maybe this card couldn't be a game changer, or here's a card I think could be a game changer.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's a lot of time and nuance. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the only thing that I think personally I would make at this moment is I would say bracket 2 can have 1 game changer card. I don't think that makes a huge difference in your deck, but it is something that going from 0 to 3, it just feels a little weird to me. And I do think like being able to have like 1 powerful card certainly can help add to the, experience of like playing a casual game. Like, oh, Vorinclex, gotta get rid of him. But that's just my take. And I feel like probably in a bracket 2 deck, it would be some of those more like powerful casual cards rather than like Lion's Eye Diamond, which is like a combo piece card, and that's a game changer. Like, that's not going to show up in like a that would just be kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, we'll talk about that in the future. I don't know about that idea.
Yeah, and that's fine. Okay. So what else has happened?
Let's see. Well, there's been a number of like sets, but there's also been like a documentary about Magic the Gathering called Igniting the Spark. I've seen some postings about it, but apparently it came out and you've seen it.
Yeah, I did watch it pretty recently to prepare for this episode. I just had the time to be able to like sit down and watch it finally. If you don't know, but it just kind of is a podcast. Sorry, it's not a podcast. It's a documentary that gets a lot of the people who were around in the early days of Magic the Gathering and kind of like talk to them about the process. I think as someone who is a very enfranchised player, I was pretty aware of a lot of this stuff already, so nothing felt like too new to me. There were just like a few like small stories here and there that I was like, oh, that's cool. But I think in terms of film perspective and just like storytelling, it was okay. It does a lot of the covering of the beginning of the game and then kind of speed runs at the end a lot of things. So to me, it felt like, okay, if you were just going to tell the story of Magic, maybe you could have just focused on like the first 3 or 4 years. Or you could have done this as like a docu-series where you could have like 3 or 4 episodes that are an hour long that kind of cover like some of the major things.
So you're saying the documentary covered mostly the beginning of Magic, but it marketed itself as talking about the entire history of the game?
No, I don't know what it marketed itself as, but it just I feel like that is what it should have. I guess just like from the storytelling perspective, like there's also like not a good thread you follow. I think it's fine if you like it. If you like Magic stuff, you should watch it, but I wouldn't say it's like a priority watch, I guess, personally.
Okay. I'll probably watch it. It's unfortunate that it has, like... I've heard about this documentary being made, and I didn't even know it came out. And I feel like I've got my finger on the pulse of the game. But you're saying it's like only available on like Prime and iTunes?
I think so. I was able to watch it on Prime.
It's unfortunate that it's like on such limited platforms.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll probably give it a watch just because I am curious. Like, I'm sure there will be some new information in it for me. All right. Do you want to talk about some of the sets that have occurred in our hiatus away from the game or away from the microphone? We never left the game.
Yeah. So there have been 3 big sets that have come out in our hiatus. 2 of them are Universes Beyond. 1 of them is Universes Within. We'll kind of do like a high level of the Universes Beyond, and then we'll do a little more in-depth on the 1 Universes Within set. So the first one is the biggest set of the year, and arguably of all time at this point. It is the Final Fantasy set, which has been... I feel like this was something that was announced almost 5 years ago. As one of, like, you know, they were going to do Lord of the Rings, and they announced Assassin's Creed, and then Final Fantasy. Yeah, so this set is the best-selling set of all time. There were 100 new commander cards between 4 commander decks. There were 164 new commander creatures, and there were 4 legendary vehicles, which we'll get to in a sec as well, but now those could be your commander. As someone who is familiar with the game Final Fantasy, who has played and, you know, likes this stuff, I do think in terms of Universes Beyond properties, this is not too far of a stretch compared to some others. So I think it kind of, like, it works well enough. I think, like, Lord of the Rings, that was, like, one that was like, oh, that's pretty easy. It fits within...
It's high fantasy. It makes sense to be, like, with Magic the Gathering.
Final Fantasy, we've done, like, you know, cyberpunk stuff. We've done things that are, like, pretty now adjacent with, like, Final Fantasy, so it doesn't feel like it's too out of the realm. To me, at least. And so, I think they did a great job capturing the feel. I know that, like, Saga Creatures was a huge thing, and people really liked those.
Yeah, I do have to, like, give, like, hats off to the multiple teams that make all these cards, where it seemed like it was kind of a home run in terms of translating the Final Fantasy games and characters and lore into a new medium, that being Magic the Gathering cards. And it seems like I watched like a couple explanation videos and people explaining like all the nuanced, like amazing like card design of like why like the like Final Fantasy Magic cards like are just so well thought out, and like, so hats off to them. Like, it makes sense why like WotC has a lot of good, like smart staff, and they did a great job with the set, and it makes sense why it's like the best selling set ever.
Yeah, and it's brought a lot of people into the game. I mean, I think the big thing for me was that, you know, my brother, who played the game before I did, like more than 7 years ago, he got back into the game because of this, and we've been able to play games together now, and he's shown a real interest and has kept with it, going into like the next set as well. So I do think that, you know, that's like kind of the nice thing about Universes Beyond, is that it does bring back people who once played and you know, can hopefully keep the game alive for longer.
Yeah, and I will say, like, now that Universes Beyond sets are more frequently coming out, I've met more people who are like, oh, well, I've gotten into Magic because of this Universes Beyond thing, and I then am able to start talking, like, with them Magic, and I would never have probably like, talked with them otherwise. So it definitely is doing the intended effect of getting new players of the game, or bringing people back into the game who used to play at a previous time, like your brother. So it's definitely working.
Yeah. Okay. We're not going to go too much into like card by card for Final Fantasy, because again, we're not as invested in Universes Beyond properties as we are like Magic properties. So we're now going to move on to Edge of Eternities, which is the last set of the year that is Magic, in-universe Magic focused. So this is what was pitched as the space opera set. So Magic finally goes to space, and when you think of like what does space mean for Magic, because it is a multiverse idea almost. The way that it was explained is like if you have an orange, and on the interior of the orange you have the slices of that orange, those are the planes of Magic. So, you know, one's Zendikar, one's Innistrad. They're separate, but like, you know, they touch. And now with like the Omen paths, you can like travel between them. This set kind of takes place on what they would consider the peel of the orange. So it encompasses a lot of space, but but it's not like it's the space in between the multiverses. So that there are like planets, there are things that live on the furthest reaches of the multiverse that we know of.
Okay, I can believe that. Was pretty hyped about this just because it's one of the few like universes within sets that came out this year, and I think it was like an okay set. I don't think it was a home run slam dunk, but it was a very good, well-rounded set. I think the one thing that I think about this set when I look back on it was a lot of people talking about how good the lore was, how good the Magic story was. A lot of the writings and articles about the like Magic story were like really well written with like elegant language and storylines. I think that was probably the highlight, where people were kind of beginning to talk about like Magic lore again and how to engage with that and how to make that more interesting, and conversations about that. Because I know we've talked in the past where like unfortunately like Magic story hasn't ever been able to like pull us in, and I don't know, I have ever evolving thoughts on that.
Yeah, what I kind of learned was that if you weren't into the Magic story beforehand, this was a good set to maybe like start with because it almost starts fresh. You get the idea of like what Magic kind of is. But yeah, so well, and then also one of the other interesting things was like this was like kind of a non-linear story. It was like choose your own adventure from my understanding. I got like a high level summary from the Magic Arcane channel.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I was at least told was, you could read it, but like each experience could be different because of how you wanted this story to unfold. Some of like the big things I think were pretty consistent, but like some things here and there could vary just depending on your choices. I won't get into a lot of what the story was because I forget, but yeah. One of the big announcements though that came with this set was that it did allow for legendary vehicles, which is a card type we've seen before.
Oh yeah.
And legendary spacecrafts, which is a new card type. These can now be your commander.
Yeah, that was a big thing about this set. Is like now you can have vehicles as your commander.
Yeah. I don't think it's been like a huge change. From what I can tell, like there's a couple here and there. Like I think probably the most popular vehicle that's now a commander is the Titanic from the Doctor Who set.
Oh,
so
I didn't know that. Okay.
More of a meme than it is like an actual, powerful thing to do. And I don't think that there were a lot of vehicles that already were like, oh, it's kind of like if we made planeswalkers commanders, there are certainly a few planeswalkers that we'd have to kind of like raise an eyebrow and just be like, do we really want that to be a commander? Whereas I think a lot of cards, a lot of the vehicles and spacecrafts are super like unnoticeable if they became commanders,
Mm-hmm.
Like if the Narset Porter of Veils could become your commander, that would be kind of a problem because that's like a Leovold in the command zone. But no vehicle or spacecraft does something to that extent, so it's almost like, yeah, fine. Like that's a pretty easy thing to change.
Yeah. So that's kind of like an exciting thing about this set. And so Guy and I are still, even though we're on a hiatus, we're still doing our top 3 commander predictions and top 3 main deck card predictions. Guy, what did you choose?
Yeah. So my top 3 commanders are Ragos Death Gastronaut, which is a lobster chef. He cares about artifacts and food. The next one is Sazrel Genesis Shepherd, who is one of the face commanders from the commander decks that came with this set, who is an insect druid, can play lands from the graveyard, and it's about sacrificing lands. And then Shu Ifit, I'm not going to pronounce this other word.
Osteoharmonist.
Say it. Oh, thank you. That was actually really easy, actually. Osteoharmonist.
There you go. Got it.
I'm a little far from my computer, so I thought like there was like an R in there that I couldn't quite tell, so I was like, I'm not doing this. But that one basically is like a reanimator commander that just makes things into skeletons. So those are my top 3 picks. Blake, what do you think?
I think those are probably pretty good choices. And to clarify, what's like your top 1, top 2, top 3? of each of these?
How respectively how I just said it. So, Ragos, Cezrel, Shui Feet, Estiel, Harmonist.
Okay. Yeah, I think those are all pretty solid choices. I think like the lobster Boros guy that cares about food, yeah, everybody loves him. And then the Jund insect druid is just like very interesting, like Jund commander option. And especially being able to play lands from your graveyard. WotC's been making more and more of those cards, and so being able to have that Crucible of World effect on a commander itself just kind of gives more options to landfall decks and landfall strategies in an interesting way. And then that Osteo Harmonist, like black Reanimator card, like I think it's just very good value where it's like a tap effect and you just do it every single turn. I think they're all really good choices. Like I agree with you, kind of backtracking about like Boros Lobster. He's like, I think my number one, like my top one. I think it's probably most popular from this set, just because everybody, it's a lobster chef. Like, how do you not love it? Like, the internet went crazy, and I think there's enough. Not only is it like the internet hype, but I think it actually has like legs to stand on, or like, I don't know, dangly legs to stand on. And then my number two choice was Tanuk, Steadfast Second. It's the mono red pilot, where it gives other creatures haste and artifact cards, and red creature cards in your hand have warp 2 in a red. That's just such a solid, well-rounded effect. So hype around this is a mono red commander, and I think it's going to be fairly popular. And then for my number three choice, I am less certain about this, but I think the fact that the fact that stations and vehicles can be your commander, I think I wanted to choose a spacecraft, so I went with Hearthhull the World Seed, which is a Jund spacecraft that has like the, it's a station, and then it's got like the various abilities of like sacrificing lands, drawing cards, playing additional lands, and then eventually it gains flying, vigilance, haste, and whenever you sack a land, each opponent is going to lose 2 life. I just kind of chose a spacecraft, and I think this one had a unique design to it, so I went with this one.
I think that's, also a pretty fair choice. Like, it is one of the face commanders of a deck, or like one of the, I guess it's one of the main 2 commanders that you could run from a commander deck. So like, it certainly will already be pretty popular, but I think just because it is a spacecraft, like, people might want to run that for the sake of having something that is a little more unique.
Yeah, I agree. All right, what are your top 3 main deck cards?
Okay, this I'm definitely not as more confident on, especially since you. I think you probably got this one. Like, I won't lie. Okay. So Farah, the Super Void, which is kind of like the main set card, that was my number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
It is
it's sexy.
Like the legendary enchantment that represents the black hole of, this area that we are in. Like, it's kind of like there are planets that revolve around this, that make up kind of the system in which we are exploring. So that's my number 1. Timeline Color is my number 2, which is just a 2-mana black creature that you can cast from your graveyard for a warp ability. I have no idea why I picked this, honestly. I just felt like, this art, like, I picked it because I remember the art very distinctly, And so I was like, that. And then I like started reading the card, and I was like, but why this? And then my last pick is Starfield Shepherd, which I this one could maybe. This is a big maybe. It's a kind of a swing and a miss. It's a 5 mana white angel, but it has a warp ability that is allowing you to cast it for 2 mana, which can go get you a basic plains and or a creature with mana value 1 or less. So it's like a powered down version of like the Ranger Captain of Eos or like Ranger Eos. So I definitely don't think it's like nothing, and it gives, you know, lands for white. So that's not, again, that's not nothing. Like I think it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think each of these cards like is solid choices. It's kind of tough because aside from like the Super Void Black Hole card, I feel like all the other main deck cards are a little bit hard to tell which ones are gonna be like the most popular.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about it, I feel like I could have probably put in one of those like station lands. Like those were pretty good. I feel like just because almost in most of the monocolored decks, like there were pretty almost auto includes, you know?
Yeah. Do you remember how many station lands there were? I think there were at least like a cycle of them.
There were only 5, 1 for each color,
Yeah.
and that represented like a planet that revolves around Solthera. I think in the artwork for each of them, Solthera is in like the background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I probably like the green one would have probably been the best pick because it's basically Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah. I think the green one is basically Gaia's Cradle, the blue one is basically Tolarian Academy, and then the other 3 are shit.
Yeah, I think
I was so sad that the white one was not another Sarah's Sanctum. I was so sad. And then you got fucked because like the red one was just like in typical like 5-color cycle fashion, the red one isn't good.
Yeah, like I don't even remember what like the black one did.
Neither do I.
Exactly.
Oh, I think it was like Volrath's Stronghold maybe. That one was kind of okay.
Yeah, like I mean, it's so clear that like the green and the blue one were on like power levels that were much better than the other 3. But I feel like I guess like, you know, if I was going to throw one of the lands in here, I feel like it would probably be safe to pick almost any of them except the red one. If I picked the red one, then it'd be like, okay, that was just stupid. That's stupider than picking this timeline color card that you picked, guy.
Oh well. Hey,
anyway, what 3 cards did you pick?
I feel like we're like somewhat similar, where my number 1 choice was the Black Hole Solthera Super Void, like you. I just think it's such, like, when you think of this set, one of the top cards you're going to think about when you think of this set is going to be the Super Void. It's just such a beautifully striking art. It's just very important to the lore. It also just has an amazing effect that's kind of like a slightly different Dictate of Erebos, or a slightly different Grave Pact effect, where it's not as salt-inducing, but it's still kind of like a interesting board wipe, quote-unquote. I was curious, Guy, do you know how much the, I don't know the type of, I think it's called the Singularity foil version of this card, you know? WotC makes so many printings of cards now. Do you want to guess how much the Super Void or Singularity foil version of this card is? The one where it's like just art and it says like it doesn't have any rules text on it. It just has the name and the mana cost. Do you want to guess how much it is in foil?
So, yeah, this is what they would consider the headline card. They do one for every set. The Final Fantasy one was the Chocobo. The Aether Spark was the Aether Drift one. And then the Mox... Not Mox Amber.
It was like
the new Mox,
it was like the Dragon Mox, right?
Yeah, I forget. Mox... No. Whatever.
Mox Jasper.
That was that one. Jasper, yep. Okay, so how much does Sophera Headliner cost? I'm gonna guess 5,000.
Okay.
You have that in front of you?
I do have it in front of me. I will say it is a very expensive card. Not, you definitely softened the blow to the audience by going that high with 5,000. It is currently listed at $1,600.
Okay. I guess, like, in my mind, I was also thinking, not to get too ahead of myself, but, like, the next headliner card that we will talk about, the Soulstone, I know is going for ridiculous high prices. So I felt like I could probably be up in the thousands and be safe.
Yeah. I think...
But that was certainly higher than I should have gone.
I think if it was, like, serialized, you know how WotC has started to do serializations of, like, there's only going to be 100 of this card, there's only going to be 500 of this card, and it's going to say, like, the fraction of, like 420 out of 500 or whatever. I think then it would be, like, 5,000, but, like, oh no, it's just a meager $1,600. Oh my god, which is so gross to say.
Yeah.
But that's another topic for another episode.
Okay, so...
Oh yeah, so... Yeah, this is a top 3 list.
Keep going.
The number 2, sorry, I kind of forgot about that. I got off on a tangent. My number 2 pick is Icetill Explorer. It's the 4-mana green insect scout creature thing that says you can play an additional land on your turns, you can play lands from your graveyard, and then it has whenever a land you control enters middle card. So there's just so many landfall strategies. I thought this is just so generically good. It probably makes it into a lot of those decks. Therefore, it's going to get played a lot. So that's my number 2.
I feel like that was probably the smart thing to do. Forgot about that card.
My number 3, I'm less certain about this one, but I chose Exalted Sunborn, which is 5 mana. It's a white angel wizard creature that says if one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And so we've seen a lot of effects like this where it's like a token, like a true token doubler. It's not whenever you make a token, make one additional one. This one is like, no, straight up double it. And the insane thing to me is the fact that it's like any token, not just non-creature tokens, and then it also itself is a creature which you can like make tokens of, and so like you can very easily like have like in a token deck make multiple tokens of Exalted Sunborn and just go insane in token generation. And I know token decks are again sort of like landfall, just like somewhat popular strategies, and so I'm like, this probably makes it in, even though it's like a 5-drop and like, you know, to some players is kind of like high on the mana curve, but it's just so good, like it probably is, I think, gonna see like some play. It may not be top 3 worthy of a set, but I think it's close to it.
I mean, I love that card. I feel like I only didn't include it because it's a little more niche with tokens, but I certainly don't think it was a bad pick. Timeline Color, like, that's a bad pick.
You regret your choices?
I regret that choice. So Farah, pretty confident. Starfield Shepherd, maybe. I mean, the Lobster, like, absolutely. That's gotta be number 1. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
That all being
So-
said, do we want to move on to like the next set?
Oh god. Okay, so yeah, this will be the last set we talk about that has come out. It's not the last set of the year. We got one more at the time of recording, and that will be Avatar. But we have our first Marvel set, Marvel Spider-Man / Through the Omen packs, which this is a digital-only expansion. So in paper, you have the Spider-Man set. In Magic Arena, you have Through the Omen packs, which every card from Spider-Man has a digital equivalent with different art, and it's basically a Magic set.
Huh. Okay.
My theory as to why they did this is because Marvel does have Marvel Snap, which is a pretty popular game that is a digital trading card game of theirs. So I feel as if Marvel Spider-Man was on Arena, it would probably be competing too much with that. So that to me kind of feels why they made that choice. I do think it's interesting that we get something like this, because I feel as if it can, in the future, help justify them printing in more in-universe cards of cards that we got from like Universes Beyond stuff. Like, I think the most, obvious one to kind of talk about is Fleam, who is a in-universe version of the Green Goblin and has unofficially become like the MTG mascot on Reddit. He is like so beloved, and everyone is like, I want this in paper. So,
all right.
Yeah. But overall, I unfortunately don't think this set was too popular. Like, it turns out that this had like one of the lowest pre-releases in Modern Magic. We did get 93 new commanders from this set. All creatures, no vehicles to care about. And I guess like the other big thing is we got the start of what will probably be a multi-year cycle. Hits the Soul Stone, which has an in-universe card called the Terminus of Return. So, okay, I'm just gonna read it because this is probably like the one Universes Beyond card that we're gonna talk about in great detail. So, the Soul Stone, 1 in a black, legendary artifact, Infinity Stone, indestructible, tap, add black. For 6 in a black, tap, exile a creature you control, harness the Soul Stone. Once it's harnessed, its Infinity ability is active. And then Infinity, dash, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, we've all seen Marvel movies, probably. We all know that there are 6 Infinity Stones. So this is the only one we got in this set, but it does probably mean in the future Marvel sets we are going to get more of these.
That makes sense.
I guess, Blake, do you have any initial thoughts on a card like this? It's a 2-mana rock.
Right, it's a 2-mana rock that is nothing but upside, where it's in the black color identity. It taps to add black, and it's indestructible, so like it's really hard to get rid of as an opponent. So, like, that alone, like, being a 2-mana rock that taps for a colored mana and is indestructible, that alone is already, like, really good, like, maybe even just, like, staple worthy. But then it also has the additional upside of, like, some mana and tapping with, like, a condition, and then you just get a static ability of, like, at the beginning of your upkeep, like, return target creature from grave to field. Like, that's so strong. Like, it's definitely a late game thing, but I'm like, oh, this is now kind of just like a black staple, mono black staple, which kind of feels bad being like, oh, well, it's a Universes Beyond version. Now, you did mention that there is a in-universe version, the Terminus of Return. And then instead of being called an Infinity Stone, it's called a Terminus Stone. But, Guy, you were saying that that's only going to be digital, right?
Correct. But if stuff like this becomes popular enough, maybe we could see a physical printing of the Terminus Stone, the Terminus of Return, one day. Okay.
There's a lot of, like, ifs, right? Like, there's the way things currently are, and then, like, there's a lot of, like, oh, well, if... Because I'm thinking, like, the whole, like, the fact that they're both in-universe and beyond are only digital, which is kind of fine. But if the, like, Spider-Man version ever becomes printed, I would also want the in-universe printed, because it just sort of feels rough if, like, only one of these versions is printed, right? Like, if they're both going to be, if one's going to be printed, they should both be printed eventually. I'm gonna feel, like, really sad if, like, the Soul Stone is the only version that's eventually printed, because it's like, well, I don't really want that version of the card. I want the in-universe version. So this is all hypothetical. We'll see how it goes. But I also am not hot on the idea of, like, format staples potentially being only Universes Beyond.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly pushed for a 2-mana rock.
It is.
I think some of the upsides of, one, it does have a color in its mana cost, so you can't go, like, land, Soul Ring, Soul Stone, like you could with, like, one of the Talismans or Arcane Signet. So I do think that that helps a little bit. The Indestructible is certainly a pretty big upside. I think, you know, as we see more of these, it just might be worth considering running more cards like Farewell, Haywire Might, things that can exile artifacts rather than destroy them. I do think when you kind of compare it to the One Ring, which, and the only reason why I picked the One Ring is because that was, like, a powerful object that was also in another Universes Beyond set, so I feel like the Infinity Stones, the One Ring, like, you know,
yeah,
flavorfully.
Yeah, the One Ring, I know this is maybe not as popular of an opinion, but yeah, I'm annoyed with the One Ring. I'm annoyed that the One Ring is only available as, like, a Universes Beyond version, that there's no in-Universes Beyond, or in-Universe version. It annoys me.
Yeah, but I would say that the Soul Stone is not nearly as powerful as the One Ring.
Yes.
So, I do like how it's not quite as pushed. It's certainly strong, but the One Ring is kind of it's a lot on one card. I think this being a card you could play early, and then, you know, eventually when you have 7 mana being, like, a strong effect, you know, that's good. But, and I guess, like, the one other thing that I do like is, it does look like the Soul Stone, if we just take out, like, the Spider-Man symbol, Like, it looks like it could be a Magic card. Like, there's nothing too...
Yeah, I mean, to clarify on that, the art is done by... I'm sorry, like Vulcan Baga? It's like notoriously like done some of the boxes, which is why it looks like some other like artworks of boxes, because it's by the same artist. That's why it looks so beautiful. So like, yeah, the art does look Magic-esque because it has those similar arts that we've seen throughout previous years. Yeah, so it's all about like immersion and people's different levels of immersion. Mine is easily broken, so we'll see. Everybody's different.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, the only reason why I brought it up is, one, it's a push card for sure. It's certainly not game changer worthy, I guess, is where I would get worried.
I would agree. Unlike the One Ring, which is like game changer.
Yeah. But the other thing too is, like, just as, this is the first of 6, allegedly. We'll probably see one for each color, and then maybe we'll see a colorless one. I say 6 because that's what Mark Rosewater said in the panel.
Right.
But it's just like, okay, so now it's like, what are the other 5 gonna do? Will they be similar? Is this the strongest one we're seeing? Is this the weakest one? So it's kind of like, how will this be? I think, and only time will tell.
Yeah, only time will tell. Speaking of looking towards the future and speculating what's going to happen, MagicCon Atlanta is currently happening at time of recording, and next year's lineup has been revealed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. It's going to be a big year. 7 sets.
Do you want to talk about each of the revealed sets coming out in 2026?
Yeah, okay. I tuned in to watch the reveal, so I do know quite a bit. Lorwyn is the first set. We got to see some preview cards.
So excited. Yes.
It looks beautiful. Like, I don't know if it's because we just were at Spider-Man and it was like, this is New York City, and it's just super, super I don't know, not the best, and it was also just kind of a dud. I am excited for Avatar. I will say that. We'll see how that goes. But Lorwyn looks like, this will be a very cool return to Magic.
Yeah, it's almost been 20 years, so I'm very excited. And any invested player knows that Lorwyn did not sell well, and so I'm very happy that Wizards of the Coast is, in a way, taking a risk going back to this plane financially. Like, it shows that they have enough belief that the set has aged well enough that the current player base is going to, buy this. And I will. I'll buy a lot of Lorwyn cards, especially if there's another Una Queen of the Fae.
Yeah, I think, aside from... So, for the longest time, Kamigawa was the #1 set that people wanted to return to for a very long time. And eventually we got Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. So it's like, okay, we did that, so now what's the next #1 place we want to return to? It's Lorwyn. So, WotC's listening, and I agree. I think it'll be a cool set from what we've seen so far. Then we have a Universes Beyond set that has not been officially announced. I've seen a lot of speculation that it's going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I think that's one that I'm just going to also kind of roll my eyes at and be like, oh gosh.
I mean, if that's true, I'd be interested in seeing the creature type being Turtle Ninja.
Yeah, I mean,
That's about it,
that
though.
certainly will be it. I guess like one of the big things for me that I didn't like about Spider-Man was it was just so much spider typal stuff that it's like I don't care about spiders.
Spider villain, blah blah blah.
Yeah, and so like here it'll be like turtle, 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 and I'm like, cool.
Are you saying you're a
So-
turtle hater? Do you hate turtles?
No, but like in Magic, I don't have any eternal synergy. Okay, so after that, Secrets of Strixhaven. So we're going back to Arcavios, which is the plane that Strixhaven is on. And this says that we will kind of like explore more of the plane than just the school, because the last set really focused on the school. So we'll get to see more of Arcavios. And then in June, we will have Marvel Superheroes. So this is the second Marvel set that we are getting, allegedly out of 3. This one is meant to focus on a lot of like generic heroes that are like across like Avengers, Fantastic Four. So you can expect to see a lot more legendary creatures in there. There's probably going to be some Infinity Stones, is my bet. So yeah. Then, as we already kind of talked about the One Ring, we're going to Middle-earth again. And we are getting a set based on The Hobbit. And, I mean, prior to Final Fantasy, the Lord of the Rings set was the best-selling Magic set of all time. Now, I felt like it was almost like a given that we were going to get The Hobbit at some point. So, boom, here it is, The Hobbit. That one, I think, still also kind of like, okay, like I can get into that because it's not the most, like, out-of-place thing for Magic.
Yeah, it's still high fantasy. It's like relatively overlap, immersion. Makes sense. I don't think it'll sell as well as the Lord of the Rings, but I bet it will still like sell well because it's like the same IP.
Yeah. Next we have Reality Fracture, which comes out in October. This, we know so little about this. The only thing that we really kind of got out of it is that it is an event set. So we've seen 2 of those beforehand. War of the Spark, March of the Machines, now the Reality Fracture. So this is a set that revolves around a climatic event that has been building for the last 3 or 4 years, pretty much since March of the Machines. That will, kind of like tie up a big story. So that's really all we know about it. And then the last set of the year will be Star Trek. I mean, we just got Edge of Eternities, and we talked about, spacecrafts becoming your commanders, so I feel like it was almost, in the cards, but that we would get Star Trek eventually, or like Star Wars, like one or the other. But yeah, Star Trek. So 7 sets.
I mean, Star Trek is kind of like related to Edge of Eternities in terms of like space opera ish.
Right.
So I'm curious, like, how well that will do. I mean, Star Trek has a very like loyal and devoted fan base, so I bet it'll sell somewhat well.
I'm sure it'll sell somewhat well, and I mean, I guess like that is something that I kind of like with, because it works like vice versa. So like we did a space opera set that took place within Magic universe. So now doing something like Star Trek doesn't feel as, out there. I mean, I guess we had like Doctor Who, which did have like some space stuff, but that kind of like eased us into it. But, like kind of same thing, like if we're doing like superhero sets with universes beyond properties, if Magic eventually did like its own universes within quote-unquote Marvel hero Avenger type thing, then like I can maybe then be a little more into that as well. So it works both ways.
All right, pretty good lineup. As per usual, like I'm biased and I'm only really going to focus on the in-universe versions, so I'm excited. I'm very excited for Lorwyn. I'm a little excited for Strixhaven, and then everything else, we'll see how good Reality Fracture is, but everything else I'm going to probably ignore.
So that's what we have to look forward to, and then I think the only other thing is we got a lot of secret layers. So Blake, you added this. Why don't you talk about it a little?
Yeah, I mean, I just added it because, like, it's a thing that happens, like, throughout the year. Secret layers have changed, like, how they're distributed and, like, how they're given to people. Like, how do you feel about, generally speaking, Guy, how do you feel about secret layers these days? Like, they're a little bit controversial, like, once they initially came out and even the months after they've come out. How do you feel now at the end of 2025 with secret layers?
I mean, I think it's cool to see them take risks of what a Magic card can look like. I think like some of them work better than others. The ones that are pretty and eligible, I'm not so much a fan of. I do also like that I feel the pace is a little better than it was at the beginning, where instead of it being like, here's a random drop, 2 weeks later, here's another random drop, and it's like, okay, cool, thank you. Whereas now it's kind of like, there are 4 or 5 times in the year where we get like a lot of drops all at once, and I think that's better than doing the many drops sporadically.
Yeah.
I do not like the demand of, or that we are not printing to demand. I know.
Yeah, that's still an issue.
Yeah, like last year, especially like with the Marvel one, that was like, hey, these are cards that people really want to play, and eventually we're going to reprint them, but, some people get to play with them beforehand than others, and it's just like, did you have time to take off work to do this? Were you have, like, the funds to do this at that time? So, that to me is kind of like still the one big thing about secret layers that they need to fix, is making sure that, like, if you want these cards, you can buy these cards.
I agree. I think that, for me, is my current, like, maybe not single critique, but, like, my major critique of secret layers at this time is the print-to-demand issue. Like, I get they're trying to, like, create this limited, like, quantity of product that basically is never going to be reprinted again. And, like, so, like, as time goes forward, like, those cards are going to become very valuable. I get that. But if, like, you're not even able to meet the demand of the customer, like, in, like, when it first comes out, like, that seems wrong to me. It's like, at least meet the demand, and then, like, over the years, those cards can, like, go up in value. But, like, we're not at that point.
Yeah. I think even, I guess, like, the other, because like, I think this is probably going to be an issue in the next couple months, or even in probably a few weeks at this point, So at MagicCon Atlanta, they announced, probably like 7 or 8 more drops that they're going to do in like mid-October. And I think at least 3 of them had mechanically unique cards. Like there's a Jaws one, like Jaws the Shark. There's one based around PlayStation characters. There's one, I forget. But like, if those aren't going to be print to demand, like I think that would be like where I could see it being fixed too, is like the cards that are like certainly the most unique that don't have other printed versions, like those should be print to demand, like just to make sure that like if that is something you really want, you can get that at some point. But yeah, they announced quite a lot of drops that are going to happen pretty soon with some of those. But yeah,
I mean, they continue to print like some weird things, like Sonic the Hedgehog. And I saw a lot of memes about that.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so like, SpongeBob, Sonic the Hedgehog.
The
there's
SpongeBob
some weird
ones
things.
at least were like SpongeBob skins. Like they weren't mechanically unique. Like
Sure.
at least they did that.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of like, well, these, like some of these secret layer things, like for example, like I think there was a Sonic the Hedgehog card where I looked at it, I'm like, oh, I would like that as a Universes Within version, but they're never going to. So I guess that's another thing that I'm like, about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, like, I think it's fine for me. Like, I'm at the point in my life where like I got other things to do, like move. So I'm okay if like half of the products I don't care about. Yeah. I'll just focus on the stuff that I do care about.
So that covers quite a bit of Magic over the last couple months. Do you have any like high-level thoughts that you didn't get to share, Blake? I know we'll do our annual full year recap, but like anything here that you want to add?
Yeah, just the fact that like, yeah, Guy and I might do like fewer episodes just because like, oh, like in the years past, like every new set was like something to talk about, and so we'd be like, all right, well, we got to record this month. We really have to record this month. It might be like record every 2 months, just because every other set we don't really care about. So we'll find other things to do besides set reviews, and we've always tried to like make sure the channel has not been just set reviews. But we'll probably end up doing more non-set review episodes as the time goes forward.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we can do another episode. More, I mean, like, last couple months have just been so busy with, I mean, I moved across the country, and then had to find a place to live, and then I had a wedding, I started a new job, so, like, a lot of that is certainly tough. But yeah, I'm hopeful that like we can find some more interesting stuff to talk about that won't just be like the set review stuff. Like I want to continue our comparing Magic to other card games, and I think that that's an idea that we might get to do before the year is over. Intent.
Yeah, I always like those episodes. It's not a topic that's talked about very much, and it's a nice sort of like card design philosophy and ideology topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think with that, we are the Wizard Staff. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you listen to our podcasts. Make sure to leave a like and review. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky at WizardStaff101. Send us an email at thewizardstaff101@gmail.com if you want to bitch and complain about how stupid we are. So thank you for listening, and we hope you have a great night. Peace.
Peace out.